one contribution that is very closely linked with the topic we are discussing now. I just asked Valentina Capanera from Portofino MPA to make her comment, and then we move to the next speaker. Please, Valentina. We don't hear you. You have to unmute the mic.
Sorry. Thank you, Luca. I want only to add that I'm totally agree with Simonetta, and I think as Portofino MPA, we think that this tool that she presented is a really useful tool for an MPA. And I think that it's a pity that no other MPA are here to learn something regarding this tool. And I am agree with Simonetta in the consideration that for the MPA in our I don't think in general, but often the work of an MPA in strictly connection with an institute of research could be useful for the management of an MPA, but also sometimes presents an obstacle, because we work with different group of research also in the same university, but the different group of research think in a different way, and some researchers don't want to share data, and for an MPA is a problem, because I have difficulty to understand why a study or research is carried on without sharing data and without a useful result for management, for the management of an MPA. So I think that we have to work a lot in this direction. The activity of a network is really important. As MPA, as Portofino MPA, for example, we are in a TMEDNet network, that is a network focused on the sharing data on temperature. That is a really important network because permitted us to compare different data regarding temperature in the different MPAs at Mediterranean level. So I think that we could be able to do the same also for this tool. Would be really wonderful for the management of an MPA. I don't know because which is the solution, but maybe we could try to communicate, to dialogue more among researchers and the managers. Maybe, I don't know. Thank you.
Well, I don't comment about the researchers that want to share their data because it is illegal, basically. So
but we have illegal fishing in MPA, so.
But okay, this is different, This is different, yes. And should be approached in a different way. But I totally agree with you. I mean, and really, our idea is to go on with this process of enlarging the network of MPAs that are now included already in a small network, because as I repeat, we have already 18 MPAs reasoning in the same way. Now for them, the issue is to use the geoportal, as I was saying, because then you need personnel in any case. Yeah, so I'm sorry, because I think that we are taking too much time. Yeah. But I'm totally available for further discussion. Also with Federica, we very often organize small things.
Also at the end of the morning, we have still time to come back.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
I see again the hand of Eric. It is right now, or it is again for mistake?
No, it's right. Just to maybe give a little answer to Valentina about why scientists doesn't want to share data. Normally, you should have
excuse me, Eric. Can you introduce yourself, at least your affiliation, your institution?
Okay, sorry. I'm here as president of the technical scientific committee of Pelagos, but I'm here answering to the question as a scientist because I work as scientist in Centre Scientifique de Monaco. So the main research is not on whales, I work on corals. But I did a PhD on ecotoxicology and human health. So as I told you, the answer is as a scientist. If people work as scientists and particularly in not applied research, the main stuff is to make articles, scientific article. So we can't share data if the data we get are not already published. Because in this way we can share data and other people can use data who can get ideas to make quite the same research and to publish before us. And in the not applied research, our main thing is to make scientific articles. The more articles you do, and quite more easily, you could have money to make more research. So normally, you should have a delay to wait that the data are published, and then you should have access to this data. Another way is for MPAs. Maybe you can make documents. Scientists came in the NPA to make a field experiment about temperature or whatever. But to allow to make the experiment in the MPA, they have to ask a permission. And when they ask the permission, you can make a document. Okay, we allowed you to make the research in our MPA only if you share the data with us. Because like that, you can have the data maybe prior they are published with like confidentiality point that you have to wait that they are published before to use the data for publication, oral publication or other stuff like that. But during the time they are not published, you could have the data and you could have already ideas of what you can do with this data, or this data can be used inside the MPA to go to the database and to have maybe to search for following in the time of the parameters you're interested in. This could be a way because we already did a field trip like that, and sometimes we have to share the data. The only thing is that the data can be used and can be given to a public or to other people before they are being published in a scientific paper.
Okay, thanks, Eric, for the precisions. I have to stop this discussion because we are going in a too narrow topic. I see also a question online in the chat. Someone can answer to this. But let's come back to the topic of the webinar. So we started today in the morning speaking about the need of having a consolidated knowledge of the area and of the topics Pelagos Sanctuary deals with. And we understood the different difficulties, but also the state of the advancements we have also with the Amara Geoportal about the integrating all the available information and data in one unique tool to have a picture, to make analysis of what is there. But it is also, Simulate already quoted, mentioned the fact that this data must be used, this information must be used also to take decisions. Also, we saw the several recommendations from Plan Bleu, and also to assess the effectiveness of such a decision or such measures implemented in the real world, in the land, let's say. So let's move to the contribution from Emanuele Mancoso from ETC UMA, that is presenting the evidences from the Mbpc knowledge platform dealing with the measuring the effectiveness of the protection measures. Please, Emanuele.
Thanks, Luca. Good morning, everybody. Can you see the presentation?
Not yet. Yeah, now it's okay.
Okay, so thank you. And thanks also to Simonetta for her presentation, because it's very, very in line with what we are going to present. So as always did before in this geoportal and data sharing and issue, we are in the same line. So we will introduce now the work we did within ETC UMA and MOU signed with the Pelagos Sanctuary, as was mentioned by Dania in the introduction. So the idea was to us to support in gathering and generating new knowledge to inform and support sustainable management. So what we have used in our biodiversity protection community was our knowledge platform. So a tool that can support the ingestion of data and disseminate results from all the community, especially for biodiversity topics. Sorry, and this, as said previously, it's possible only if there is a strong collaboration with the different actors in the community, and these steps involve, as mentioned, the collection, the harmonization, and finally the dissemination of relevant information at the different levels. So just to ensure that what is taken is also shared in a proper way. So I remember also the main actors as the Pelagos Secretariat, Amare Plus, Hacobams, the Observatory of Plamblé, and others that participate in this collaborative exercise. Our platform, so as mentioned, it's a chain of steps that comes from an ingestion of data or collection of data of the community. In our case, was the main input to the community of biodiversity protection and its modular project, but also introduce data from external sources that are relevant for the studies, so to make more understandable what is there. There was an effort in this standardization and harmonization, and also documenting what is there. That it was done with the metadata, and was highlighted also in some comments, the need of this metadata, and maybe in a standardized way. With our approach, we tried to have this done following some European guidelines. So INSPIRE was providing some metadata guidelines for documenting the data, and we did so for our case. So we built up a metadata catalog that it was collecting the information in a standardized way for all the data that were used in our platform. Also trying to interlink with existing platform, as for example the Amare Plus that was even in the same community. Out of this, the combination of data is provided to different user applications. So we have thematic viewers to highlight some specific spot, and recently we developed some more maybe audience that has not too much technical to disseminate the results and main out. So also the way to play a little more with the data and get some insight as interactive data tools or data stories, side stories we call. Again, we have to ensure this common data policy that we signed at the beginning of the contract to ensure that all the data can be correctly recognized and cited as a product of someone. So again, researchers has the rights to publish their data, and the data that are published here are well documented in all these modular tools that we have. So wherever you get the data, analyze and publish, you could refer always to the data producer to understand more how the data was produced, and also to contact the expert in case of more information are needed. So this is working both ways, on the ingestion part of the data and also on the dissemination as final results. In the case of Pelagos, what it built up was to use this operational dashboard to have a more useful understanding on what the spatial data can provide. So give some real fact on the data, and maybe also to support those technical users that are not really familiar with this GIS environment. So just few things to highlight compared to in a map, and simplify results. So not all the complexity that maybe it's not for that the audience, but just for expert people. And this can also be used to support what is coming out from a publication or from a report, and was the case that we highlight here for this study that was done about the situation of effectiveness of actual MPAs and how they can improve considering other effective conservation measures. So we build up a web page we call Knowledge Hub. So we hope to develop a user-friendly tool that helps to store, maintain, and update relevant knowledge to support decision. So this was the map of the study realized at Mediterranean level, and we just focus on the what was happening in the Pelagos. Of course, it's this kind of study at the Pelagos level could be quite biased and restricted, since has less differences compared to the Mediterranean area, but still has some rich content that can be also helpful to understand how this kind of tools can works out. So here there were 4 different indexes calculated. Was legal designation, so the coverage of protected area, how the management is strict or not, if there is implement management plan, and before that, if there is a management authority. Is available at this link, and maybe I try to do a live presentation now, so you can see the legal designation indicator on this Knowledge Hub. So here it's highlighted the area of study, and it's including what are the marine protected areas and also the other effective area based on conservation measures. Of course, there is a lot of overlapping, and here there are some numbers out for understanding how is the area of total Pelagos, what is the area of the protection of derived by other MPAs, and what is the percentage of that area. Just to mention that there are more than 120 MPAs within the Pelagos area. Of course, this indicator is 100% coverage because the full Pelagos has a designation. More about these designation types can be different for the MPAs or for the OECMs. So this is just to show the richness of the area. So we have, in addition of the MPAs with national statutes, Marine Natura 2000 area, Biosphere Reserve, World Heritage Sites, Ramsar Site. So all of this it's within the Pelagos Sanctuary. And here we can highlight what are the OECMs. So we have this Cetacean Critical Habitats, DEPSA, PSSA, and protection of deep sea habitat and resources. This should be within FRA. There are more options given here. So here can be highlighted as all these measures have a different weight and can be overlaid all together. So here we can see how are the area distributed and how many different protected areas are overlapping to each other. Just getting back on the indices calculated, we have this stringency. So in the map here on the left, we have the red area that are the ones that has the most stringency, let's say. So the archipelagos of Tuscany and La Maddalena, North Sardinia. And here in the middle, existence of management authority, and due to the Pelagos coverage, whole area is covered, while on the right we have the map of the fully implemented management plan, and we can see that in this case we have some area here in the south of France and here in the north of Sardinia as in other island, supposedly. This study was also merging a unique map and compared to the results that were coming out of this study, this fact sheet that will be published soon, about the different of the coverage of these indexes among the Pelagos, what we calculate here, and what was calculated in the Western Mediterranean. So we see that, of course, due to the extension of the Pelagos, we have a higher percentage of these indexes, but of course there is still room for improvement and things about how to better improve and maybe where to improve here. So this is just an example on how things can build up. The study was created using the database harmonized by MedPan, the MapAmed database, and the version is 2019. So in this sense, some information can be really up to date and change respect to on this version. And this is something that we are always facing. So the data is published, then there is an update. So all this should be harmonized, and if not possible, at least well documented to be on the safe side and not provide contradiction in this results with the reality. Maybe getting back on the presentation, I have some remarks. So I said this is a showcase product. We develop also including some results on the pressure, but of course not much time here to show everything, but we can share with you the link so you can try and navigate. Still, it's something on prototype level, let's say. There are some results that can be validated, but it's still, let's say, work in progress. So thanks again to this kind of exercise, to initiatives as ACOBAMS, partners of the Mbpc, like Amare Plus, that was a data provider and supporting this, cooperation with other network, European Global. And by the way, Antoine will present something after these slides in relation to this, and also to this interoperability with the platform. So not just the sharing among people, let's say, but also trying to guarantee a machine-to-machine interoperability, so that the data published somewhere can be also remirrored in another platform without any use to human resources in that sense. And remarking again, respecting the data, the common data policy to ensure the data ownership and guarantee this collaborative process among us. So I think I'm done, but before there should be some word from Antoine following on this. I don't know, Antoine, yes. Are you here?
Yes, Emanuele, thank you. I am following all the discussion since 10:30, and it's very interesting. But unfortunately, we haven't enough time to discuss all of this. So yes, briefly. So I am Antoine Lafitte from Plan Bleu. I am in charge of the regional observatory at the Mediterranean level, and I would like to not to be long, but just to complete a bit what Emanuele said. So we have moved the data we manage. We are not collecting data as Plan Bleu. We are using and analyzing data coming from, let's say, international providers and also national ones, because one of our main strengths is to build and to strengthen networks between universities, laboratories, National Institute of Statistics, but also national observatories on environment, and also to create a network between data sets and specialized indicators. So we have moved all this data, I mean data we are analyzing, through this World Environment and Situation Room developed by UNEP, which is a data information and knowledge platform. You can find this doing a search on internet. And this tool is supposed to become the main entry point of all the UNEP agencies, so including also a Mediterranean Action Plan. So we started to work with colleagues based in Geneva at the GRID, which is the Global Research and Infrastructure Database from UNEP under the UNEP Science Division. And this platform allows countries to feed national assessments, but also to conduct monitoring and reporting, to support the drafting of policy briefs, for example, and also to communicate in a dynamic way some data. And here it exists this MAPEX, which is the geospatial component of the WESR. Next slide, please. I don't know who is okay. And so you have a screenshot of the project managed by Plan Bleu within this MAPEX. And to date, we have more than 200 views available for users. So we have data from RACS. RACS means Regional Activity Center of UNEP-MAP. We have also data coming from this MEDEC, the group of experts working on climate change at the Mediterranean level. We have also information, geospatial information coming from universities and research projects. So to date, we have around 10 institutions already connected to MAPEX, either through a web service or with the data directly served on the MAPEX GeoServer. And we have around 20 institutions or research projects already interested to contribute to this effort. Among them, we can mention WWF Med, IUCN, or also Pelagos or Tour du Vala, for example. And here on the screenshot, you have an example of the indicator 7 of the Mediterranean Strategy for Sustainable Development that Plan Bleu is monitoring at the global, at the regional level. And this indicator is exactly the same as MAPAMED is producing. So this is a good example to show a mirroring of data coming from a partner. Next slide, please. And this is my last slide, just to illustrate the specific topic of today. We have 6 layers or views. It's a synonym mirrored from the ETCUMA GeoServer to MAPEX. Here it's regarding wetlands. And you have on the left side of your screen the 6 layers already integrated in a specific categories. And you have the screenshot showing that it's totally working. We have the same, it's really a mirror. And we have also capitalized results from previous collaboration we had with ETCUMA. And for example, on the screenshot, the small screenshot at the bottom of the slide is showing the occurrence of turtles. So we have around 20 layers interoperable between ETCUMA and MAPEX geoservers. So it's what I can say, and I would be happy to continue the discussion if you have some questions. Thank you for that attention.
Thank you, Emanuele and Antoine. The presentations were very clear and show that we have several platforms, but they are making efforts to speak each other, no? To the well-known interoperability of different databases. That is a crucial point, I think, in this time. Any question or comment or remark on this last topic? Okay, if not, we can move to the last.
Luca?
Please.
Yes, I would like to thank Emanuele and Antoine for their intervention, and I would like just to add that with reference to the Pelagos Sanctuary, we have many soft law measures that can be tools that can be used by different actors and on a voluntary basis. So this is a very important part of the action within the sanctuary, and so I wanted just to remind that and underline the importance of these measures, such as the partnership charter of the municipalities or Pelagos ambassadors, and they are deployed in the whole area of the sanctuary. Thank you very much.
David asks the floor, please.
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick remark, possibly to my colleague Emanuele, regarding the information shown on the effectiveness part of the Knowledge Hub. I suggest that we may rephrase the OECM part to potential OECM, because to my knowledge, there are no designated OECMs yet in the Mediterranean. So I think that would be more accurate if we just added this potential as was shown in the fact sheet. So just that little comment. Thank you.
Indeed, we can have a talk later and and agree on something that can be skipped in this phases.
Dania?
Yes, just quickly before moving to the last session we have. So just to put again the frame around the different presentations that were made about tools that could be of use. So certainly these discussions, whether with the presentation of Simonetta of Amare Plus, or the work under the Mbpc that was presented by Emanuele, and then the mirroring side and the potential to use all of these knowledge broader at global scales and to make somehow the results more accessible to people. All of this has been done not in isolation at all. So we have been part of a working group that we developed with the Pelagos Secretariat. And these are solutions that we think could be easily placed in hands of the management body. And depending a little bit on the needs, all of these could be fine-tuned. So that's just showcasing somehow the discussions on what has been proposed as part of actions that can come and results that can come from Mbpc to support the more effective management of Pelagos. And certainly, I mean, the discussion, we hope that it does not stop here. Some improvements could be done. Certainly what David has mentioned, I mean, all of these accuracies can be still worked out, but certainly showcasing a bit that solutions exist and they could be useful to ensure more effective management. So that's a little bit around the context of all of what you have been seeing. So it has been in a way co-designed and agreed progressively as we moved on to finalize, at least for the lifetime of these projects that are quite ending. Amare Plus ended already, Mbpc is ending next month, but certainly hoping that progress is done and that finally all of these tools can become a direct tool to be used by the managers themselves.
Costanza.
Yes, thank you very much, Luca. Thank you very much, Dania. Yes, I would like just to clarify that all these output will be made available for the parties and to the national focal point. And today we have with us a representative of the Italian Ministry of the Environment, and of course we are going to capitalize and to share with our authorities, with the authorities of the sanctuary, of the agreements, this so important cooperative work that it was done till today.
Thank you, Costanza. We assumed that this, and just to answer to Dania, the discussion doesn't stop now. Now enter in the main focus of the webinar of today. That is what to do in the future, because during the morning we saw the results of consolidated studies. We had a look on available databases collecting all the information that we heard about the recommendation for cruising set by Plan Bleu. But now in the next session we are entering now with a bit of delay. We will hear Peter McElworth from the Marine Institute explaining us one big proposal developed in the framework of the Mbpc, including South Adriatic EBSA, environment or biodiversity sensitive area that Mbpc is strongly supporting and proposing. And then Caterina will manage a final discussion on what to do in the future. So up to now we said what we have in hand. Now we are moving to next challenge, let's say. Please, Peter.
Thank you, Luca. Do you hear me okay?
Yes, we hear you very well.
Excellent. I'll share my screen, working on the basis that the technology works. Just bear with me 1 second. Oops. Do you see that?
Yes.
Excellent. So now for something a little bit different, as they would say. I'm going to take Simonetta and the rest of you back to the Adriatic where it all started. And we're going to talk just a little bit about the Southern Adriatic Ionian Strait EBSA, which was a project that has been, oops, excuse me, which was a pilot area that was identified as part of the Panacea project, which was working between 2016 and 2019, and then was extended through the Mbpc, and hopefully, depending on the gods in the next few months, we'll be moving on to be capitalized further. While the SACE EBSA and the Pelagos are at very different scales of their, let's say, development rather than implementation, I'm wary about saying the word implementation when we talk about governance and we talk about management of an area like an EBSA. And whilst an EBSA doesn't have any direct implication for management, it was recognised by the COP10 of the CBD that to encourage parties, governments and competent intergovernmental organisations to cooperate collectively on regional and sub-regional basis to identify appropriate measures for conservation and sustainable use in relation to the EBSAs. This includes the establishment of networks of MPAs. One of the benefits of going last on a webinar like this is to listen to what everybody else has been saying. And what has been pretty clear is that we're mixing our terminologies. We're mixing the MPAs, the MSPs, the OECMs, and we need to really clarify within us as a group, but also when we're talking about conservation and conservation measures within a maritime spatial plan, for instance, we need to ensure that the terminology that we're using is clear and concise. And it's obvious from the conversations we've had today that, you know, we need to clarify this. And it's really important when we get round to this situation, talking about large areas of governance, that actually we're talking about, you know, integrating or coordinating users of the sea. One of those users being conservation. Okay. Ideally, we want it to be, you know, a prioritized user. We want to look at, you know, how do we put in systematic conservation planning within a maritime spatial plan? And the EBSAs potentially provide that opportunity. We shouldn't consider EBSAs as OECMs, and we shouldn't consider EBSAs as MPAs. They have the potential for us to put in some kind of management that may prioritize conservation in a way, but recognizing the rights and use of industries and stakeholders in the region. Okay. Okay. To go back a little bit to May and June earlier this year, we had the first meeting of the SACE EBSA Conservation Community, which is a subsection of the Mbpc. And we brought together regional stakeholders, national authorities, and the intergovernmental organizations, including members of UNEP-MAP and the EUSAIR. And the aim of this was to actually try and identify what were the limiting factors with regards to the development of transboundary governance, particularly with, you know, our interest in conservation, trying to identify an appropriate forum for collaboration, and then moving forward to action-orientated steps towards the implementation of governance structure. Two other cross-cutting themes came up: legitimacy of leadership. Who am I, as a Brit living in Croatia, to propose some kind of governance? So it was clear that at some point the relevant authorities, particularly the national authorities, would have to take some ownership of the project, and that would be facilitated by the intergovernmental organizations such as UNEP, SPARAC. And the second thing was shaping the community itself, making sure that we had the right expertise available. 4 key themes came out: development of a systematic knowledge base. We've already talked about this a lot today. Partnerships between researchers and policymakers, making sure that we are providing the information that policymakers want, and the policymakers have the opportunity to direct our research with regards to real world situations. Of course, the engagement and consultation, not only informing, but consulting with the community of stakeholders in the region. Second aspect, the creation or adaptation of a political agreement. In the SACE EBSA, we don't have the Pelagos agreement, but we were looking for something that would be a proxy for some kind of development of governance or management. And the Permanent Commission for the Protection of the Adriatic Sea and Coastal Area was highlighted as a potential area. Establishment of a robust institutional setting. We already had members of UNEP-MAP working there, but also the macro-regional strategy was heavily involved in the development of this project. And then finally, looking at potential means to create an effective policy and management framework. Also, from a perspective of Pelagos, Pelagos needs to go through the same structures. They already have the network. They already have the stakeholder community. Pelagos is 20 plus years old. You know, the SACE EBSA initiative is only 2 years old. So it's not a case of what can, you know, Mbpc or the SACE EBSA conservation community can give to Pelagos. It's actually mutually supporting roles, I think. Both of us are going through the same things. We can learn from Pelagos, and Pelagos can learn from us. So also the establishment of a robust institutional setting, as Katerina previously mentioned, the SPAMEs, MPAs, PSSAs, FRAs. I would hasten to add and reinforce what David said. We should not be considering all of these as OECMs unless we have some clarity on what actually an OECM is. And I don't believe that we have that. Looking at two complementary initiatives, the one is the PSSA. It provides, you know, an excellent framework to look at also how do we develop conservation means, utilizing the frameworks that are already in place, the EBSAs, the SPAMEs, the Natura 2000 sites, the MPAs. What I found really interesting is what Katerina said. Katerina said it was also about economics. We can't close off the Pelagos alone because that would impinge the economics of one or two of the ports. So we also, as environmentalists, conservationists, we need to consider blue growth. And then what Simonetta was talking about, how do we control blue growth? How do we involve blue growth? And the only way we can do that is we engage with it. And the only way we can engage with it is utilizing the available initiatives. And one initiative that I haven't heard much about, I admit that I'm not an expert on the WestMed initiative. But for me, it would seem important that if we were to want to engage, that engagement of the Pelagos Sanctuary would be extremely important, particularly looking at point 5 at the bottom there, biodiversity, marine habitat conservation and restoration. All of these are primary goals for conservation initiatives in this region. We have specific goals. The CBD has set this 30% by 2030. The EU has made that even tougher for most of us. Not only 30% by 2030, but a third of that 30% should be strictly protected. That creates not only an obstacle, but also an opportunity. EBSAs provide a potential framework if we can put some kind of governance system in there to look at how do we develop MPAs and OECMs in these regions. It would allow the nation states to fulfill certain objectives, particularly when we consider we have 15 EBSAs within the Mediterranean Sea, okay, 2 of which are sitting in the Pelagos or adjacent to the Pelagos. I'm not saying the EBSAs are the answer to everything, but what I'm saying is that maritime spatial planning will happen. It happened at urban level, it happened at suburban level, it happened throughout the terrestrial environment in most cases. It's going to happen. Blue growth is going to happen. Climate change is going to happen. We need to be a little bit ahead of the curve and start to consider how do we put some kind of spatial planning which has a conservation tilt towards it. That's it. Thank you. Katerina, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Peter. And we realized how Pelagos can be useful for a new EBSA, no? Like in South Adriatic, but also Pelagos can receive new ideas and food for thoughts, let's say, from this EBSA-based approach. I don't know if there is any reaction on this, Costanza or others, before moving to Katerina, to the round table, let's say, coordinated by Katerina. Any specific remark on what Peter said? Or maybe we can open immediately, Katerina, please. We can open the final discussion. On
do you see my computer now?
Yeah, we see.
Okay. Okay, so thank you, Pete. We are a lot behind the schedule, so I was actually going to propose Dania that maybe she can interact with me, and we use this session to also conclude the meeting so that we will be on time. So my idea was to use this time that we have left, about 20 minutes, to consider, actually not myself, but you, to interact with you and consider what we learned from this Mbpc cooperation and all the positive sides of the cooperation. Of course, there might have been also difficulties, and we certainly learn from difficulties as well, sometimes even more. But I would like to close on a positive note. And what I was seeing during this year of discussions and consideration of different activities is that within Pelagos and maybe the Mediterranean in general, things are moving slowly, but they do move. And actually the Mediterranean time dimension is weird, so it can be very slow, but then it can suddenly be very fast. So but from my perspective, what I saw in this case is that when there is a will from different people working or different organizations working in the same field and all having the same objective, concrete things can happen, and so you can see a good change happening. And I think here there is a lots of room for future activities, actually. So the Mbpc network was used by Pelagos as a tool to actually initiate some of the activities. And now Costanza and Viola, they can actually check some box and maybe even close some of the activities that were planned. The Mbpc members, they're members of the working groups, as we heard several times. So they will all have in their personal capacity, or maybe with a future project, if it will be approved, they will keep feeding the system and help Pelagos to develop new ideas or develop specific dress to ideas which are already there, for example, guidelines produced for a bigger area. We have the Mbpc knowledge platform for Pelagos, which is certainly a concrete result. And then we had the scientific collaboration, and you can see the fact sheet on the right showing the first little step of those collaborations. But there are more. I mentioned with Chima and Tethys, and listening at you, actually, I already have amended my agenda, the agenda of the impact working group, adding few things. So I will tell you the things that I had on my agenda, and I hope that this will stimulate some reaction from you. So the working group on impact, basically after this meeting and after this cooperation, will keep working on collisions, on the focus on the collision in Pelagos. We should be working on guidelines for recreational boaters, taking advantage of the excellent work done by Plan Bleu, and tailor some specific guidelines that can be spread out throughout the Pelagos Sanctuary, maybe taking advantage of the municipality, which are the Pelagos charter municipalities. And there are guidelines. In those guidelines, there are also guidelines that can be made specifically for Pelagos ports and harbors to actually become sustainable and even certified. So there is some work for the Secretariat there as well. They should start lobbying, getting familiar with the certification process and lobbying with local municipalities of the chart and the central administration to get more certified. And then there is a discussion which was brought up by the last few presentations, and it's about databases. And what Caterina Alfredi mentioned, we need a strategy because there are way too many databases, and it's true that they're all trying to, they are all improving and improving their interoperability, but it's also true that they were made maybe for different reasons, and we then need to have a fair and open discussion on what is the best approach, because as Simonetta mentioned, there is a cost to sharing data or putting data in a common box. It's a cost of someone actually doing the transmission of the data and preparation of the data. And also in this regard, we should be also honest, because the scale of data needs to match the scale of what we are managing or what we would like to manage. So if you manage an activity which has a fine scale, then you need fine scale data. If you manage if you want to manage an activity at which has a broader scale, like fisheries in general, not fishery in the, I mean, don't be artisanal fishery maybe, but fishery in general, then you need data over a much wider scale. And also data needs to have a connection with it has to match also the ecological characteristic or aspects of a habitat or species. And here we are talking about highly mobile species. So you have to make sure that you are looking at the species and the impact of a specific activity in an area, taking into account the range of the species and how this really affects them locally, but also at the population level. So there are lots of things that we can discuss in the impact working group. And then there is maybe some agenda for the SPAMI working group. There was a discussion about data sharing rules and the database cost. And I think that could be maybe a concrete first discussion that they could entertain in that group. So here is what I got from the meeting. And now I wanted to actually ask all the present, starting from Plumbley, if they want to give some idea and maybe even commit if they want, because I just told you the agenda of the impact working group, but I'm not going to do all this work alone. I mean, it's impossible for me. So I will need for each of these topics to have some volunteer coordinating it and start the process. So I just listed few organizations here because you gave some ideas during your presentations, and some I added because I know what they do. So please, if you feel like it, if you could maybe tell what you are ready to do for Pelagos, but also for yourself. I mean, you do work in the region, and so it is of your interest as well that if Pelagos works.
Gloria.
In fact, it's Céline, because we changed from laptop because my camera doesn't work. So for the presentation this morning, I use a laptop. So sorry, but it's Céline Dubreuil from Plan Bleu anyway. So thank you for this proposal, Caterina, of cooperation. Of course, we would be very pleased, Plan Bleu would be very pleased to support especially the elaboration of guidelines for the ports and also for recreational boating in the sanctuary Pelagos. I see several possibilities of
framework for carrying out these activities. Maybe you know that there had been a new call for the Interreg Euromed program, and we are a partner of the Sustainable Tourism Community governance project. So it will be a 7 years project, which has been already accepted. So it can be a potential framework. And I was also thinking about the PLIF. I don't know if you heard of the PLIF. Alors, this is an acronym. Well, I forgot the acronym, but this is a fund which has been launched 1 week ago in COP27 by the Région Sud of France, but it's wider. It has been launched by the Région Sud to fund the PAMEX, the Plan d'Action pour une Méditerranée exemplaire, which was launched during the IUCN Congress. And there's a specific action to promote sustainable ports and to promote sustainable tourism, and they hope to mobilize more than 1 billion of euros to put in place this PAMEX. And I think it can be also an opportunity to fund such activities in the sanctuary Pelagos. So we can of course discuss that later, and we can also help to identify some potential partners, some ports who already put in place some sustainable measure practices. It's what we already started to do with our catalog of case study for cruises and recreational boating, ports and marinas. So we would be pleased to pursue this collaboration.
Thank you. And I hope Costanza is taking notes of all these opportunities, because I'm not going to, I will be.
Done. It's already done.
Cool.
Thank you very much, Céline, for your proposal and availability.
So is there anyone else that wants to give Costanza some idea or offer some availability for cooperation?
Liz Genal from CPMR.
Hello, good morning, and thank you very much also for all the speakers and all the interesting presentation. It was really nice also to see all the tremendous amount of work that you are all doing to produce this management plan. And of course, from the CPMR, even if the Mbpc project is ending, we are part of this memorandum of understanding, and we want to keep it alive as long as possible. And from the CPMR, which is representing regional authorities and the Inter-Mediterranean Commission, of course, we are very concerned with the work that is currently being done inside the Pelagos Sanctuary, because it concerns different regions like the Région Sud in France, Corsica, of course, Liguria or Tuscany region. But it also concerns regions that are beyond this area. And I think it's very important that from the IMC and CPMR, we keep on transferring the good practices, the good results and outcomes that you are producing. And on the second, let's say, role that we can play, it's also to support the Pelagos Sanctuary and the work that is being produced in the view of lobbying also at EU level. what you are doing, producing these different types of data, these different methodologies, and new schemes of governance. It's also very important in terms of mainstreaming and upscaling those results to the EU level. It is also a role that the CPMR, of course, is doing. And in the view, of course, of the evolution of the Maritime Spatial Planning Directives, or also the Marine Strategy Framework Directive that is currently in revision, it is also very important, I think, from our side to keep that in mind. Of course, the final revision of the MSFD is not planned until 2025, so we still have time to discuss and to see what are the positive outcomes that we can bring at this level. But I think it is very important also that all together we continue this great cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. And I see Carol Martinez that wrote something in the chat, but maybe she wants to take the floor and say directly to the audience about commitment and then agreements between MEDPAN and Pelagos.
No, thank you. Thank you so much. Well, first of all, congratulations for this workshop. It's more than interesting, informative, and very useful. Definitely, MEDPAN is supporting the Pelagos Agreement and the Secretariat. And as I mentioned, we discussed very recently with the Secretariat about the idea to organize a forum next March. That would be a great follow-up of this workshop in order to further discuss how we could bring together all the relevant stakeholders to make sure that they will support the successful implementation of the management and action plan of the Pelagos Agreement. So be reassured that MEDPAN, through its different activities, whether it's about training, networking, or different projects and even funding, we are supporting the success of the Pelagos Sanctuary. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I look forward to further discussing about this forum. We will soon share information through the Pelagos initiative. So stay tuned. But congratulations again. I think we have great information and great energy here to make something very supportive.
Thanks, Carol. And also a lot of work for the Pelagos working groups, no, that are going to start their work in the next weeks or months. Caterina, are you satisfied by the engagement? Peter, please.
Sorry, yes. Just the important thing is I took the microphone away from Caterina. Doesn't matter what I say, it's just important that I did that. I would just like to say that, you know, we talk about blue growth and we talk about freedom of the seas and this perception that we all have the right to do what we like on the sea. This fundamentally needs to change. I don't know how we do it. I guess that the work that Costanza and her colleagues have been doing with stakeholder groups and with, you know, local communities, this is the only way that we can change this perception that the sea is endless and we can utilize it as we see fit. At some point, that will need to change, and it will need to change from a right to a responsibility to use the sea. And that will only, I think, go through, you know, programs like ocean literacy and engaging with stakeholder groups. Thanks. That's all I want to add.
Thanks, Peter. I see Simonetta raising her hands.
Yes, this is really very important, what we were saying at the beginning and now again with Peter, because I think that one very relevant result from all these interactions that we had in this last year, thanks also to opportunities like this one, all the work that has been done by Dania and the Mediterranean Protection Community, is that there is a very strong, let's say, scientific community and people working into conservation at different levels that are talking very much together. And we are really, let's say, on the same path, let's say, but we have this big elephant in the room, which is, as I was saying before, people that then decide for us. And so I think that in the last Interreg Med, there was an important effort also to deliver our messages at the level of Bruxelles, trying to individuate the right people, because this blue grow is not really blue. And in my opinion, it is something that we should really take care of, because it is true that it will be an important opportunity for new jobs, but it will correspond, it is already corresponding to an incredible number of increasing threats. So, I mean, we should really take care this community that is now really all together. I see now Peter, but also other people. We are working together since 20 years, delivering important messages, very, I would say, robust results, because there is also these issues that several years ago, the scientific community sometimes was not producing result really relevant, for instance, for marine protected areas. Now we are all aligned, I would say, but now we have to do a step forward, because if not, I mean, the changes that I'm observing in the marine environment are so strong that, well, I don't know how much we will have to save. So to me, we should plan to really to engage much more those stakeholders that have really a role in the policy, and beside the policy, in decisions that are really related to the potential of making sustainable our use of the marine environment.
Thank you so much, Simonetta. Look at the time, I propose that to give the floor to our guide, to our lighthouse, Dani Abdulmalak, for wrapping up this webinar.
Yes, thank you so much. I wanted really to get most out of the discussions, and it's so good to hear a little bit also different impressions. I want to come back to my provoking point, why not to change the way we do things, right? And it was like, okay, I don't want to be a dictator. Katerina mentioned we cannot stop things from happening. Sometimes we need to reflect, and I think this is what we started doing now. And I emphasize a lot of what Simonetta mentioned. Yes, it's not blue and growth. At some point, there are some limits that need to be done if we want to really achieve what we are all have been gathering together, at least for the 6 years with most of you working on that. I mean, growth is not illimited, and while, for example, activities such as maritime transport and all these accelerating touristic activities, ports at all levels to be just put anywhere and any place at any time speed. I mean, these are threats, and of course they are accumulating, all of them. What to do? So certainly part of our actions need to be in terms of guiding, but also what is missing. Certainly there is a big elephant in the room. Industry should be more and more engaged, but also governments need to take bold decisions. And here I don't think we are only a bunch of scientists. I do think that we represent regions, part of us. We represent cities, parts of us. We are committed to countries such as Costanza and colleagues. And all of these are important tools, I think, human tools that we have in order also to look into a different direction. That's my personal Dania Abdulmalak perception. It's not Mbpc and so on. But within Mbpc, I just shared a link that we presented a few weeks ago in the final event of the project in Brussels, mainly in the session that was with this uptake from decision. And it was about, okay, we need to go towards a nature positive future, and we need to accelerate a transition, which is looking in a different direction. So that is also, I think, an elephant in the room that we need to start talking about. That's, to me, my contribution to that. I do not mean that all what we are doing is not right. I do think that through Mbpc, priorly at Panacea, we have created a great community. I'm personally more than satisfied of all these efforts and positive vibes and energy that each and every one brings in the discussions. We have lots of tools, so we have network of cities, we have network of regions, we have scientists working there, we have lobbyists working with us. So the massive work of really joining forces is really great, and we are now well positioned. I mean, we are working directly with, you know, the Pelagos Sanctuary that has a frame, that is a management plan, and that has clear actions to be done. What can we do there? I think we have started many things. I think the discussion today in the context of Pelagos is really very relevant and timely. From the results, starting from this evidence now showing really what the issue is and where are areas that within still the errors that we can do from the science side, which we look too much into, but we need to have adaptive measures and very quickly somehow implemented, because time is running and the degradation of biodiversity is happening, plus of course all the effects linked to climate and so on. So from my side, certainly we need to close a project very soon. I think that we brought in a window of opportunity and funding, and I really would like to thank the Interreg Mediterranean program, who are not here today, but they know that it was really very appreciated to open the application form at midlife of the project, include budget to engage such as an important, I would say, setting that is Pelagos for the Mediterranean. And certainly we have from the SACE EPSA, what Peter presented, quite some interesting elements, maybe not as developed as in the case of Pelagos, but certainly this somehow, cooperation in terms of moving into something that makes sense is also very relevant. We have been able to engage very relevant, I think, stakeholders around that. And the SACE EPSA hopefully is something that will have steps and will show that it could be another area where conservation could be also set as a priority in part of the region. And for Pelagos, certainly, I guess, as human power that we are here, we are willing. There is willingness from all the partners, I think, that have contributed to maintain this contribution. You have heard Plan Bleu, but also CPMR, MedCities were not here. I know there is sickness of the representatives, but certainly they have been willing to be part of that. So I think we are halfway. We have quite of a platform that is set. We would need to ensure that we have the funding needed, hopefully in the future, to be able to maintain a more rigorous and timely progress. But certainly through the working groups, I think independently of a next project coming or not, we will be engaged as far as we can and committed to move on with all the expertise and knowledge that the different stakeholders that are part of this Mbpc can contribute to. I guess that's it from my side, unless Katerina, you wanted me to say something else that I missed.
No. Maybe only that you will, I mean, but you said it, you will still be committed with working with ISPRA, for example, with me and others to develop some of these ideas and opportunities. So I have no doubt about that. I think I'll leave to Costanza the closing words, yes. But thank you all. It was very interesting.
So and from our side, more than happy to be there, to contribute as we mentioned. So Katerina, certainly you can count on us. And Costanza, certainly I think you have quite of an important role also to have our words heard between the different governmental organizations that the Secretariat represents. I think that's very important.
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Dania. Thank you, Katerina. Working with the Pelagos Secretariat means having the willingness to work with the member states. So the Secretariat exists because its role is to support the member states. So the link is here. And of course, I would thank all of you, all the organization you represent, and all of you personally for this encounter from a professional and human point of view, even if our collaboration was start during the pandemic period. The energy was there, and I really hope that, and I think that this community can continue to operate in the region, and that further opportunities of collaboration will be implemented with the Pelagos agreements and throughout the permanent secretariat. I will have a word for each Mbpc partner, but I will just thank all of you and just say that, as we have mentioned before, we are keep working on with the working groups and all the deliverables and output that were presented today and others, and we can start from the proposal that you have made for the next week, the next months, and I would like to thank on behalf of the parties of the Pelagos Agreement, all of you. So ETC Yuma, ISPRA, CPMR, all the project leader, Luca for the mediation today, the Marine Institute, and of course Plan Bleu. Sorry if I don't mention some of you, MedPan and TECIS, Chima Research Foundation. As I said at the beginning of the workshop, it's a collective work. So without you, the Secretariat, composed by only 2 people, couldn't be able to give a real support to the parties. So thank you very much again, and see you soon, I hope.
In the working groups.
Surely in the working groups. And in the next week, I would like just to add that in the next week we are going to organize a meeting among the coordinators of the working group, and in order to fix the methodology that each working group should use, and ensure also a consistency between the work of each working group. So you are going to receive more details and news from our work in the next days and weeks. Thank you.
Good. Thanks to all. So enjoy the lunch.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.